What's your version of like the American yo or dog? Is it like Bosh?
Bosh.
Bosh.
Bosh, guys, and welcome back to the Cannon Podcast. So lads, welcome back.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
Well, like, like we've got Americanisms that like foreign people like make fun of all the time. Like, Matt Turner does the whole dog thing. You got that dog in him.
Yeah.
What's like a UK-ism? Because I've seen like people go Bosh
quite
a
a big
lot,
one.
and I don't know what that is.
Bro and broski are quite big.
Broski.
I would say. It kind of depends.
Yes, my bro.
I probably can't say that, but like bro and mate and dude are all. We would not say dog.
Don't worry, Alex. I'll get you a durag, and then you can definitely say broski.
I feel like the comments will tell me I cannot say broski.
Oh, that's incredible.
Okay. Yes, guys, welcome back to the Cannon Podcast, and today I am joined with Alex and George as always, and this is a special video. We are going to do a bit of a Q&A for our Patreons with some fantastic questions,
and YouTube
of course, YouTube members. If you want to ask some questions going into the future, this will be a thing going into the future. If you want to ask some questions, you know where to go. So let's start off with the man with the questions, Alex.
Hello. Let's start with some questions. Oh, unless we wanted to do, what first? Because
we could do that first, but let's just leave that for the patrons. Let's start with questions.
Okay. Right, we'll start with this one. Matt says hello on YouTube.
Hello, Matt.
Says, Hello, Matt. I'd be interested in your thoughts on revisionism of players. I know this isn't exclusive to just the Arsenal fan base, but I've seen takes like Maitland-Niles is better than Benjamin White. According to some fans, Arsenal players become world-class if they're on the bench or they leave the club. Loving the pod. Thanks, Matt.
He's right, though, because have you not seen that when players get injured and then they turn into like the saviour of everything?
Yeah, Jurrien Timber.
Yeah. Well,
Jurrien Timber is currently the best player in the world.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's because fans start to think of solutions, and they want they got these problems they want to answer straight away, and so they go, okay, whoever's not available will definitely be the solution. Happened years ago when back in even was it 2015 when Theo Walcott got injured and Walcott was out for a year with his ACL, and they go, when Theo Walcott returns with Ozil, he'll be the answer. And then Santi Cazorla the same, and it's always like that. I think fans, the absence makes the heart goes fonder, and fans are used to it. And also I think Twitter and X, let's just say, plays a massive part of the narratives as well. And all it will take is one good compilation or a good stat to come out, and everyone's narrative around the play can entirely change.
Yeah, because you know what? I'll come from the other end. I've actually seen the opposite quite a bit, especially with injured players, in terms of those injured players are not good enough to lace boots anymore, and they can't kick a football. So it's just, I think it's, we live in a recency bias world. Our attention span is, beyond compromised from everything that we do on social media. And I don't think X helps, but I think in general, even if you were to kind of go up to fans in the grounds, like I don't think this is just an online problem. I think it would be a problem generally speaking, because we're not able to get perspective on something that you love. Like you're too close to it. So I think you latch on to either the hope or the downfall. Both have the same kind of symptom, right? They're quick fixes to improve, quick fixes that kill our team. And so I have a feeling that a lot of that is just based on you being too close to the problem to be able to kind of really see maybe what the issues are. And, of course, we sit here on a pod trying to do just that each and every week, but it is difficult. We are fans, and we do succumb to that ideology. You have to.
I think when teams are going through any kind of dip, there is always a bit of a referendum, isn't there? There's always a bit of a kind of,
we see it all the time. Recently,
are the players good enough? Is the manager good enough? Whatever. But I think I always think about this way: if you sat everyone down at the beginning of the season and said there's going to be a dip in January, sort of around January to end of December, January time, where we come out of both cups and we're 5 points off the leaders. Can you see? How do you think you'd feel? Probably most people would go, that's disappointing, and I'm upset about that. But as long as we finish the season strong, you accept that that's just sort of the flow of the season, and that sort of happens. So we know conceptually And maybe some people might be like, don't mind, that happens in the season. Some people might say it's the end of the world. But I think most people would be like, that's what happens in a season. You have dips, maybe you come out the cups or whatever it is. As long as we finish the season strong, I think it's okay. So we accept that, right? And that's where I'm at. As long as we finish the season, it's okay. But in the moment, it's really hard to get that perspective, me included. And I never on these podcasts, when I speak in this way, want to say like I'm just sat there watching you guys overreact, you idiots. No, I'm part of it. I'm like, God, we're never going to win again. Oh my God, like the world's over. We're all part of it, and I'd probably include you two as well. But I do think broadly, when we look back at this season, I hope we look back at this period, and part of one of the many symptoms will be starting to go, yeah, that player that we sold was this. And you just have a referendum, don't you? And because you're constantly talking about it every single day, you go through I was having to think about free kicks the other day. We haven't scored a free kick since 2021. And I was like, is that a problem? It's like, it doesn't really matter, mate.
Was it Martinelli got goal against Burnley?
Burnley, yeah. But that's what I mean. You start, I don't think it's as simple as you start looking at problems where there are Bhavs, that's a title, mate. But once there is an atmosphere of things are going wrong, everything starts to feel like it's up for debate, and I think that's just one of the symptoms. Once we get back to winning football matches, we won't be having these conversations.
That's why I always find it funny when last year everyone was like, the atmosphere was different. It's because we were winning every single game. You're not allowed to be negative at that point. And I was thinking, something feels different this year. Why is no one being negative? And I'm going, win. That's probably why. Fans need wins. Fans need that win no matter how it comes, and it changes the narratives. You look at the games this season. I'll give you the example of Luton. We weren't awful in that game, but made some poor mistakes, and David Raya would have got absolutely slandered if we had drawn that or lost that. But because we win the game, the narratives Declan Rice has scored the winner, and Arsenal have the title credentials, and they've got the character.
Very different.
Yeah.
It's just the normal ebbs and flows of the season. You know what I mean? I feel as though, like you guys said, I just think you're too close to the occasion for you to really gain perspective 3/4 of the time. And I mean, we're all at party to this, and I just think that even last season, I would almost think that there was no way that you could criticize the team. There was a period where you couldn't do it, so it goes both ways, and I'm sure to each optimist there's a negative person, that's going to maybe a contrarian pessimist.
There's two sides.
Thank you.
Pessimist.
Like they're both.
Well, they'd say realist is the word.
They're both like two sides of the same coin, I guess. And look, I look at other YouTube channels and I look at other fans because I like to watch people that are maybe of an opposite view to me just to gain a little bit of perspective a lot of times, because I have my own opinions about the team and I have my own wants and dreams, but then I sit there and I'm very humble enough to accept I am a minuscule part of this commentary. I know pretty much nothing in comparison to some of the big experts in the field. And I also try to look at the other sense. Well, if there's people like me that believe that they know what they're talking about in a more optimistic sense or a positive way, there must be really good points and people on the other end of the spectrum that maybe view us as not good enough, haven't been good enough for a while, and why. And so it helps me gain a bit of perspective. But yeah, we always have this postseason kind of clarity. In a sense.
I know what you're going to say there.
Yeah. And
saw the vision.
And I almost had, I don't know about you guys, but I had that in this break because last year we had the International Cup, like we played Lyon and Juventus. So even though that we weren't, in the league talking about things, I still felt that there was football that I was able to connect to in a little bit. Mario Kozier-Dewberry played. There was things that I could say, okay, we can use this to the future. I just felt like I haven't watched like meaningful football of us for like a good 2 weeks, and it was able to allow me to recalibrate, let's say.
Yeah, I think in football, as in life, you can only really decide how you feel. Everyone else, you don't know. You only see what other people share with you, so you don't know. So you don't. Someone might be absolutely spewing it off about how Arsenal are absolutely terrible, and they might have had a horrible day at work, or equally, they might be doing the opposite and trying to cover up for something, saying, oh, everything at Arsenal's absolutely fine. You never know. I think football is so often a kind of conduit through which people channel things that I just go, do you know what? Let people do what they want to do and just let the football return. Let's move on. Greg Beals. So I like this. I'm in charge. Next question. A club comes in.
Feels weird.
A club comes in and buys Emile Smith-Rowe, from Greg Beals on the Patreon. Do you think they view him as a wide player or an interior?
Simple. No, I think that's a really simple question. It's an interior. I would flog the club because you're not allowed to sell him under any circumstances. But no, I think he's always been an interior. I've always had these conversations with people that, they were watching him in our left wing. And I said, well, really, he's not a left winger, is he? He's more of a pseudo 10, even in how we played him and how we used him. He was used with an overlapping fullback, and he's always somebody that will be priority in the half spaces because of his willingness to combine. And it's not just, ironically, his central running power and those little, bingo tropes that I love to talk about. Yeah, that weird thing. They actually suit winger in broad strokes. I mean, he's a really powerful runner over bigger distances. He can carry quite effectively and for longer periods as well. And he's got great manipulation of the football. So, I mean, in that sense, he's got traits to do the winger task. But really, his instinct is to combine. You watch him from youth and you watch him from, his first minutes. The way that he interacts with the team is by association with other people. He is best when he's combining with other people and bursting into space. And that simply isn't really the biggest role of kind of a winger. And ultimately, that's what you want in the half spaces, somebody who's fluid on the half turn that can create solutions when the space doesn't provide them. And, as a whole, I think that he isn't necessarily a creative dribbler, by the way. I think he's incredibly effective. And I think that he's probably one of the most fluid with the ball in larger distances. But when I look at wingers, they create instability in static situations, 1v1. I look for people to be a bit more, I call it creative fixing, which just means when you've got another opponent, you're able to kind of create doubt in their positioning. And I think from a standstill, that's not his strength. He's a pass and move killer. And so, yeah, I would completely say interior, and I don't think that a winger is in his future.
Yeah,
I would agree with you. But George, you're now sporting director of Arsenal. Congratulations on the role.
Thank you.
I'm Tony Bloom, and I'm calling you up, and I'm saying I think what Brighton need is an injection of some central running power. How much before you start talking this window?
In terms of selling him?
Everyone has a price. So I know you say don't sell him, but as in at what price do you say I can't not take that?
And that's the footballing price tag, not the George I love Smith-Rowe.
No. Yeah. I mean, well, the issue is you're going to have to buy that replacement. And that replacement
question, what's the value?
Is probably 75 to 80,
this is how he's
89 million pounds.
This is different negotiations.
No, like I would say anywhere between 75 to 89 million pounds.
75 to 80 million pounds.
That would be my replacement because I'd be looking at Florian Wirtz. I'd be looking
what about in
at
the summer?
Yeah.
I'd be looking at somebody similar who on the half turn can give me production. Like, I think people, they misunderstand what Smith-Rowe could offer a team. And you've got a destabilizer with guaranteed goals. We bought an attempt at 65 million pounds from Kai Havertz to be, by the way, that player in a different way, and it hasn't worked. And so you've bought a second striker with goals that's looking to contribute in a defensive dual aspect. And that was 65 million pounds on 250 grand a week. So, I mean, if I was to go and, again, I think Florian Wirtz would be my kind of sidestep. You're looking at your Jamal Musielas, you're looking at those types of players and profile. Those aren't cheap. They are your unique game breakers. You look at Maddison, who, by the way, was quoted at 50, 60 million pounds before, and then he was just in his last year, and that's why he's got a lower move. I mean, these profiles bring you goals. So they're not in the 50 to 60 million pound mark because they're midfielders that provide output. So they are the most expensive signings in that realm. So yeah, I would say between 75 to 89 million pounds, anywhere within there is what a goal scoring prime age midfielder that's going to be starting for you for the next 8 years is going to cost, no matter where you go. Not just Emile Smith-Rowe, but elsewhere.
And Tony Bloom just put the phone down.
I think he did.
Because he's not... he's not paying £8 million for Emil Smith Rowe. I think realistically we'd probably get 40, 50. And I understand the fact that George is saying the replacement would cost that much, but you're not going to get, in an ideal world, the same amount you're going to spend on a replacement. And plus, I think Wirtz might be more expensive right now unless he's got a release clause. But I get what you mean. I think an interior that's a number 10, we've been linked with Xavi Simons as well. That type of player. It could help. I think Smith Rowe is the closest player in our team to maybe a Foden, a player that maybe could receive it on a half turn and drive it into midfield. And that's why it's a bit annoying. So I wonder, right, if Smith Rowe does somehow break into the team this season and get a few games and maybe starts playing well, maybe scores a few goals, what's the perception going to be of Mikel Arteta? Because some fans are either going to say, look, he's protected him and he's come back and Smith Rowe's back now. Or some fans will go and say, why have you waited this long? So I really don't know what Emil Smith Rowe. I'm very intrigued to see if he does get any minutes before the end of the season. And it's going to be difficult because Arsenal are fighting for a title and things are getting serious now and we've lost a few games, so Mikel will be even more protective and maybe more leaning towards players that are senior. But I don't know, man. Where does Smith Rowe break into this Arsenal team? Because we always talk about when, if. But we're approaching that part now. If he doesn't do it by the summer, I think his Arsenal career is unfortunately over.
Yeah, I'm really on the fence with Smith Rowe. I think the talent is there, but there's so much talent in the world. There's so much football talent. The question is whether you can do it, and that's almost not. It is in his hands, but it's based on how much will Arteta pick him. And that's really hard. We'll say goodbye to you.
Sorry, just to end on it, I really think that there's going to be criticism either way, if he fails or if he succeeds, because I have a feeling that Mikel hasn't maximized his use of the squad generally. And Emil doesn't have to be the answer. It could be somebody else. And I'm fine to go and buy somebody else to find that solution. But at the end of the day, the amount of minutes that Kai Havertz has been given up to date hasn't been the return that he's asked for, certainly not for the money that he bought him for. So there's going to be questions, I think, regardless of what happens. Whether Smith Rowe comes in and leads us to the title, there will be probably more questions because it'll be like, why didn't you give these chances earlier? But if he, doesn't perform and we still kind of limp through this season in an area where we haven't replaced Granit Xhaka well enough and your replacement was £65 million and we don't do well, I think questions will maintain the same. So that left-hand side problem, let's call it, is going to be a question, and Mikel has basically had to die on that this season.
We'll say goodbye to you there on YouTube. If you want to hear us talk about, maybe we're going to talk about Benzema in the second part for patrons and YouTube members. So maybe you want to sign up for free on Patreon for a 7-day free trial. See ya.
Thanks for checking out the Cannon Podcast. To hear the full episode, sign up as a YouTube member on this channel or go to patreon.com/thecannonpod.